The moment Marcus Sterling reached for my hand, the lobby noise thinned into something sharp and cold. For 15 years, I had carried his family's trust like a second spine, shaping a $3 billion acquisition piece by piece. This was supposed to be the final signature, the end of a fight. No one but me had stayed awake to win. "Good morning, Maren," he said warmly. Ready to finalize the agreement, I should have taken his hand. I should have smiled, or pretended I still belonged in the building whose polished marble had worn down the heels of every shoe I owned. Instead, I shifted my tote higher on my shoulder and nodded toward the young woman hovering behind him. Cassidy Hale stood stiff, arms crossed, chin angled just high enough to imitate power she had not earned. "She fired me, Marcus," I said. 2 hours ago. His hand froze mid-air. He turned from me to her, slowly, as though the motion itself cost him something. "You did what." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It carried enough weight to crack glass. Cassidy opened her mouth. No words came out. Her father might have given her a title, but he could not give her the language to escape what she had done. I waited, not to watch her drown, but because there was nowhere else for me to stand. She violated the handbook. She managed finally. Dress code infraction. Marcus blinked once, disbelieving, then looked back at me. The pity in his eyes cut deeper than anything Cassidy had tried to do with her brittle, inherited authority. I squared my shoulders. If I crumbled now, I would never stop falling. "I was escorted out," I said quietly. My access revoked. My desk cleared. The silence that followed held more truth than any meeting agenda upstairs. I felt something inside me loosen a wire pulled too tight for too many years, snapping at last. Marcus lowered his hand. "Maren." "When did this happen?" 48 hours ago, I said, and everything began to unravel from there. He nodded once, as if absorbing a blow meant for someone else. And that is where the real story starts. Long before the lobby. Long before his question hung in the air between us. When I first stepped into Sterling Hart's offices 15 years ago, I was 30 years old, newly divorced, and holding a resume that no one in Chicago cared about. I remember standing in front of the reception desk with a suit borrowed from a friend and a smile that felt like armor. The only thing I had going for me was the way I listened. And Marcus Sterling noticed that before anyone else did. "You hear what people are not saying," he told me during my second week. "That is rarer than talent." I worked my way up from liaison assistant to senior strategist, year by year, deal by deal. It was not glamorous work. It was late-night calls with Tokyo partners, arguments with environmental attorneys, and travel schedules that tested every seam of my sanity. But it was mine. I built something with my hands and my head at the same time, and every merger I completed felt like stitching another thread into a life I had remade from nothing. Back then, my supervisor, Daniel Reeves, used to say, "You're holding this place together, Maren. Do they know that?" And I would answer, "They don't have to. I do." Even now, I can hear his laugh. He left the firm 10 years ago, burnout or heartbreak, with Rockefeller Center in the loop. It is sometimes hard to tell which breaks a person first. I kept going because someone had to. And because the Sterling acquisition was the kind of once-in-a-generation alignment that only comes when you have lived long enough inside a company to understand its bones. I spent 9 months weaving departments, cultures, and egos together until the structure held. The board called it a $3 billion triumph in progress. I called it proof that I had survived every person who once dismissed me. Sarah, my assistant, told me 2 days before everything collapsed, "You never take credit. Maren, you should..." I brushed her off. "Credit is for people who don't expect backlash," I said. She frowned. "Backlash from who?" I gathered the stack of contracts and slid them into my briefcase. "From anyone who thinks competence threatens them," I answered. And that was the truth I had spent 15 years learning inside that tower. Cassidy Hale arrived on a Monday morning, with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. I was reviewing overnight correspondence when HR's director, Elaine, stopped by my desk. Her voice was low, almost apologetic. "Maren, the vice president's daughter starts today, Cassidy. You may want to be prepared for what I asked." Elaine hesitated. Her father asked us to treat her decisions as binding this week. He wants her to develop leadership instincts. His words? I stared at her. Binding, as in personnel decisions. Elaine nodded once and walked away before I could press further. Minutes later, Cassidy swept through the office like she owned the lease. 24 years old, bright lipstick, sharp heels, and an expression carved from entitlement. She stopped in front of my desk without introducing herself. "You're Maren Calloway," she said, as if reading a label. "My father said you're important." "I oversee the Sterling acquisition," I said. "We're close to finalizing," her smile tightened. "Good. Then you'll be reporting directly to me for the week." I closed my laptop slowly. "Your role hasn't been clarified." "It has now," she replied, tapping her phone. "Legal confirmed it. My father wants me in a decision-making seat before the merger closes. He told me to prove I deserve the job." Sarah, my assistant, hovered behind her, wide-eyed. "Miss Hale, if you need orientation," Cassidy cut her off. I need compliance. This floor has been too relaxed for too long." She shifted her gaze back to me. There was something trembling beneath her confidence, the kind of insecurity that claws instead of climbs. "I will be reviewing behavior, protocols, and attire," she said. "Standards matter." "Standards matter," I echoed. "So does judgment." Her chin lifted. "Then we'll see who demonstrates it." It was the first moment I understood she was not here to learn. She was here to assert, to control, to carve space by erasing whoever intimidated her. She walked away, leaving Sarah whispering, "Maren, this feels bad." I gathered the Sterling files, steadying my breath. Something had shifted, and not in my favor. Cassidy found me late the next morning, just as I was reviewing the revised appendix notes. She didn't knock. She didn't pause. She strode straight into my office, holding a spiral-bound handbook thick enough to serve as courtroom evidence. "Maren," she said sharply, "stand up." I looked at her over my glasses. "Is something wrong?" "Yes," she snapped, flipping the handbook open. "This..." She thrust the page toward my chest. I didn't bother reading it. "It's the dress code," she continued. "Section 4, subsection B. Appropriate closures on jackets. Those buttons," she jabbed a manicured finger toward my blazer, "are not compliant." The bullpen outside went silent, even through the glass. I felt dozens of eyes turn toward us. "Cassidy," I said evenly, "this handbook predates half the staff. No one uses it. I use it," she fired back. "And as acting chief of staff, I enforce it. You are setting a poor example." I closed the Sterling contract folder with deliberate calm. "We are 48 hours from a $3 billion signing. This blazer is not a threat to the company. It is a threat to our standards," she hissed. "You walk around like the rules don't apply to you because you've been here forever. That stops now." Sarah appeared in the doorway, pale. "Miss Hale, maybe we should stay out of this," Cassidy snapped without looking at her. "Maren needs to take responsibility." I stood slowly, meeting Cassidy's stare. "Here is my responsibility. In 2 days, I am sitting across from the Sterling family to finalize the most important acquisition this firm has attempted in a decade. If you would like to discuss my buttons after that meeting, I will make time." Her expression cracked, just for a breath before she forced it back into place. "You think you're untouchable," she whispered. "I think I'm working," I replied. She clutched the handbook tighter, her knuckles whitening, and for the first time, I felt the ground tilt beneath us. Cassidy came for me before noon. She didn't knock this time either. She stepped into my doorway with the hard, brittle posture of someone who had spent all morning rehearsing her anger. "Maren, stand up," she ordered. "I'm in the middle of a call," I said, covering the receiver. "End it." I hung up slowly. "What's going on?" She held the handbook like a verdict. "You ignored a formal compliance directive." "I acknowledged your concern," I said, "and I explained the timing." "You dismissed me," she shot back. "You undermined my authority in front of staff." A few analysts had stopped typing. Heads turned, whispers died. "Cassidy," I said evenly, "we can talk about this privately." "No," she said, stepping fully into the center of the office. "This is happening now." HR's director, Elaine, appeared behind her. "Cassidy, my father said my decisions stand." Cassidy cut in. "So here is my decision." She faced me like she was about to deliver a historic proclamation. "You're fired." A ripple went through the floor, sharp, stunned. I felt it settle into my spine. I did not argue. I did not gasp. I did not ask her to reconsider. I just said, "Okay." The single word hit her harder than any outburst could have. Her confidence faltered, confusion flickering in her eyes. Elaine stepped forward. "Maybe we should document it's documented," Cassidy snapped. "Escort her out." I walked past Cassidy without looking at her. I made it to the bathroom before the numbness cracked. My hands shook as I locked the stall door. 15 years, health insurance, mortgage payments. Everything flashed through me in a single cold wave. I pressed my palms to the metal wall until the tremor eased. Then I lifted my head. If they expected me to crawl, they had chosen the wrong woman. I washed my face, straightened my blazer, and walked back into the hallway. The office watched me, silent, and I realized the real damage Cassidy had done had only just begun. I returned to my office without a word. No one stopped me. No one dared. The air felt wrong, too still, too expectant, like the moment before a structure begins to crack. I closed the door gently and set my tote on the chair. Sarah stood in the doorway, wringing her hands. "Maren." I tried to talk to her. She wouldn't listen. "It's done," I said. "You don't need to involve yourself." "She fired you over buttons," Sarah whispered. "Buttons." I forced a smile. "Go back to your desk. I'll be fine." When she left, the silence settled around me. I opened the top drawer and began packing. Not hurriedly, not frantically, just deliberately. My framed photo of my father, the fountain pen I bought after my first closed deal, a stack of notebooks filled with shorthand no one else on the floor could decipher. I reached for the manila folder labeled Appendix Legacy Terms, then stopped. Company property stayed here. My knowledge did not. I set the folder back. What went into my tote instead were the pieces that never existed on the server. The list of personal cell numbers accumulated over 15 years. The small leather contact book of mentors and intermediaries who trusted only me. And the pages of handwritten notes from conversations with Marcus Sterling's grandfather about the Montana land. None of that lived in digital ink. None of that could be duplicated. "This is what they never understood," I murmured. At the bottom of my drawer, half buried beneath old legal pads, I found the binder I hoped I would never need. Dark leather, gold lettering. My father's handwriting on the first page, his annotations from meetings at the Sterling estate more than 2 decades ago. Cassidy had no idea an entire history connected me to the family she believed she could impress. I placed the binder carefully in my tote and closed the drawer. The office kept pretending to work, but I felt their stares as I walked toward the elevators. They did not know it yet, but a foundation had just been removed from beneath them, cleanly and quietly, one step at a time. I stepped into the lobby with my tote over my shoulder. No badge, no title, just the weight of 15 years tightening in my chest. I was already halfway to the doors when I heard my name, Maren. I turned. Marcus Sterling was striding toward me, hand extended, expression warm and certain, exactly how he looked in every successful negotiation we had ever navigated together. "Good timing," he said. "I was hoping to speak with you before we finalize everything." Ready to sign the merger, before I could answer. Cassidy lunged between us like she had been rehearsing it for hours. "Mr. Sterling, if you need anything, you speak to me," she announced. "I am acting chief of staff." "Maren is not authorized to engage." Marcus blinked, confused. "Not authorized." "Why would she not be authorized?" Cassidy lifted her chin. "Because I terminated her employment for non-compliance. She created a hostile environment and ignored directives. The firm is moving forward without her." Marcus slowly lowered his extended hand. I raised my chin. "She fired me 2 hours ago." The words landed with the force of a falling beam. The noise of the lobby thinned until it felt like every sound had been pulled into a vacuum. Marcus turned to Cassidy. "You did what?" Cassidy laughed, a tiny, nervous sound. "It was necessary." "She violated the handbook." "The handbook," he repeated, voice flattening. "Yes, she insisted. Her buttons, her tone, she was undermining standards." Marcus stared at her for a long second. Then he inhaled once, sharply. "The merger is off." Cassidy staggered. "You cannot do that." "I just did." Her voice cracked. "My father will learn a very expensive lesson," Marcus said. He looked at me again, eyes filled with something far colder than disappointment. Above us, somewhere on the 42nd floor, the tower began to buckle under the decision she had made. I was halfway down the block when my phone began vibrating nonstop. I ignored the first call, and the second, By the 5th. I glanced at the screen. It was Henderson, the chief financial officer. I answered only because I wanted to hear the panic. Maren, he barked. Tell me this is a misunderstanding. It is not, I said. In the background, voices were shouting. Paper slammed against a table. You spoke to Sterling, he said. He walked out. He is refusing to return calls. Yes, he announced the cancellation in the lobby. A strangled noise burst from him. Cassidy fired you over clothing. She did. She is suspended. He snapped. Effective now. HR is drafting the notice. Her father is claiming he gave no such permission. That is not what Elaine told me, I replied. Silence. Then he lowered his voice. Listen carefully. We can fix this. Come back. We will reinstate you with a raise. A substantial one. You can take over the chief of staff role. Name what you want. What I want, I said, is already arranged. What does that mean? I have a meeting with Marcus in the morning. Another silence, longer and heavier. A meeting, he repeated. Yes, at 8. Maren, if you walk into that meeting representing him and not us, that choice was made for me, I said, 2 hours ago. He exhaled shakily. Please, come in. Just talk to the board. Goodbye, Henderson. Before he could speak again, I ended the call. Another message flashed across my screen, a plea from the legal team. Then one from the vice president himself, claiming he never approved Cassidy's authority. The tower was cracking, and I kept walking. Marcus chose a corner table at the peninsula, far from the morning crowd. He stood when I arrived, the gesture softening the edge of what we both knew this meeting would become. Maren, he said, pulling out a chair for me. I read every briefing you ever sent me. I knew you were indispensable. Yesterday only confirmed it. I sat. You canceled a $3 billion deal because of a dress code argument. I canceled it, he replied. Because the firm chose arrogance over competence. He folded his hands. And because you are the only person I trust to handle what comes next. A server poured coffee. I did not touch mine. What comes next? I asked. My family is restructuring our acquisition strategy. I want you to lead it. Salary doubled. Equity in the holding company. Full authority to assemble your own team. His tone didn't waver. You would answer only to me. The words settled in the space between us like a door unlocking. For 15 years, I had carried the weight of a company that treated my loyalty as a given. Now something new flickered in me, possibility. Marcus, I said quietly, that is not a small offer. It is overdue, he replied. And there is one more thing. I waited. The board at Sterling Hart has demanded a final meeting. They think they can salvage the acquisition. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I intend to let them try. And my role, he leaned back. I want you in the lobby when they arrive. Visible, calm. Let them see exactly where you stand and whom you stand with. I felt it then. The shift inside me. Not revenge, not triumph. Something steadier, yes. I could step into a different kind of future. When do we begin? I asked. Marcus lifted his cup. When you walk through their doors tomorrow morning. The boardroom felt smaller than I remembered. Executives packed every seat along the polished table, shoulders tense, eyes darting toward the doorway, each time footsteps echoed outside. Cassidy sat near the end, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Her father, the vice president, kept his gaze locked on the table. Marcus entered first. I followed a step behind him. Conversations cut off instantly. The chief executive officer rose. Mr. Sterling, thank you for agreeing to return. We can resolve this. We are prepared to reinstate Maren, and Marcus raised a hand. I am not here to reinstate anyone. I am here to present the only remaining offer for your company's assets. Silence fell, brittle as glass. He placed a single sheet on the table. 30 cents on the dollar, he said. The chief financial officer lurched forward. That valuation is impossible. We were at $3 billion. That was before you allowed an unqualified staff member to remove the architect of the deal, Marcus replied. All eyes turned to Cassidy. Her breath hitched. She whispered, I thought I could fix it. Her father closed his eyes. Ashamed. The chief executive officer tried again. Maren, please. You know this company. You know its value. Help us restore it. Take the chief of staff position. Take anything. Every face swung to me, fear, hope, desperation. For the first time, I felt none of their weight. Marcus slid a pen toward me. Your call? I picked it up. The room held its breath. A few shoulders loosened, believing the worst was past. Then I set the pen back. No, I said. She fired me. And I am not rebuilding a place that never valued me. A stunned hush rippled across the table. I reached into my tote and pulled out a small stack of cards. I offered them to the younger analysts standing against the wall. If you ever want a workplace that will not throw you away, call me first. Marcus's smile was quiet and certain. Cassidy stared down at her hands, realizing she had not only destroyed a merger, she had destroyed her own future. And I walked out of the tower without looking back.